Our land, our vision. The process of regional planning happens now in the Yukon because of First Nations land claims agreements. The Yukon First Nations took concerns about land and resources to the Canadian government back in 1973. The Umbrella Final Agreement signed in 1993 became the blueprint guiding the content of all agreements, clarifying who owns and manages the land in the territory. Regional planning answers the question, how is land to be used? To create an answer, plans are developed for each of the regions of the Yukon. Each plan creates a vision for the future land users and identifies ways to achieve this vision.
To begin, each region will have its own Regional Planning Commission. It's made up of people nominated by Yukon First Nations and the Yukon government, but they are not official representatives of those governments. Usually, 6 people sit on a commission. The Yukon Land Use Planning Council helps each commission through their planning process. It also makes recommendations to the Yukon government and Yukon First Nations about regional planning. Each commission faces the reality that there are multiple and sometimes competing land uses, and not all of these land uses are compatible. People can't do everything everywhere, all the time, without conflict and consequences. Sometimes new types of land uses will move into the region. Regional planning can help prepare for changes that these new land uses have. To address these challenges, commissions gather information about the specific issues and interests of the land users. Normally, they hold public forums and collect written submissions. The commissions do their best to understand the different land uses, the people who use the land, and the impact of these activities. These are all important parts of finding solutions to the issues that everyone can live with. Regional planning commissions are especially interested in maps. Maps showing resources of the land that people value and care about. The goal is to sustain valued resources. The commissions promote the well-being of Yukon First Nations, other local residents, and Yukoners. They also consider the interests of all Canadians. Each commission needs to know where growth or change in their region is likely to take place. These changes can be modeled and analyzed to provide insight into what the future might hold. Each commission divides their region into smaller areas. The future vision for each area will be developed and expressed in what's called a land designation system. Working landscape will be the vision for some areas, while other areas will be managed to maintain their natural state. Commissions will spend most of their time dealing with places where they try to accommodate land uses that are not easily compatible with each other, or where the land uses are likely to change the landscape. Compromise and consensus are a huge part of regional planning. Before recommending a plan for approval, the Commission presents options for solving some of those hard land use challenges. The public has a chance to consider these draft and options. They're also evaluated by plan approval bodies, the Yukon First Nations, and the Yukon government. Based on these responses, the Commission creates and submits a recommended plan. The Yukon government is responsible for approving, modifying, or rejecting it for public land. Yukon First Nations have that right and responsibility for their land. Once the plan is approved, it's time for implementation. The plan guides the governments as they make decisions on land-related projects and land uses taking place throughout the region. People wanting to use the land are able to understand what the overall vision for the landscape is before proposing their activities. By following the recommendations in the plan, conflicts between land users will be reduced. A more harmonious and efficient decision-making system will guide the region into the future. From time to time, as values and land uses change, each plan is reviewed and updated.
To find out more or get involved in regional planning, contact the Yukon Land Use Planning Council or the Regional Planning Commission that may be working in your region.